welcome to the Experio seminars from a researcher's perspective this time, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Thank you. And I will share my screen so we'll see that that works, Kalle. I guess that will be doing it like this. Um, See if something is happening. Um, is that right, Kalle?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so yeah, thank you very much, Kalle, for the invitation. Really, it was really an invitation, by the way. But I'm glad to be here and a little bit terrified also. You know, when talking to deals, partly friends and the community that is around Experio Lab, and I will base this presentation, of course, on my PhD journey. So bear with me. It will be some parts that is maybe a little academic, but I will also try to kind of bring you back to practice around my title here for designing for quality emergence and the welfare perspective. I would like to start kind of just bringing you some of the answers from the dissertation, which could be kind of, you know, when you do that, it's also kind of looks quite simple, you know, 9 years, almost 9 years, and you try to wrap it up with a few words, what you really think matters along with your research. It's kind of difficult, but it's kind of like with complexity that I come back to later. It's kind of things that have shaped the picture for me with patterns that invite maybe more questions than answers. And some of these things has made me has come to be aware for me how we should and could handle the emerging future ahead of us. And some of the things there is, you know, this involving perspectives. And I talk a lot about perspective during these presentations, I think, because I think that there are many different voices and senses that we need to kind of involve. Design for me is involvement and to be participative in when we are to develop healthcare, welfare, or anything really. And and I think also taking this action-oriented um, stance for me that requires systematic reflection to generate real insights. I think that has been really important here. That and something that this research had brought to my senses that this is really important, that we are action oriented when we do exploring healthcare, not being retrospective and that, but the systemic reflection is one thing, and I will come back to all these things. Another thing is this with tensions. There are really coming up a lot of tensions when you're working in an organization that is quite um, yeah, you know, being in healthcare that I have been for all these years is kind of um, this space where there are a lot of tensions between doctors, nurses, management, the surrounding community, patients. But I think we need to use those tensions to making them visible and working with them, not think of them as barriers that we should avoid by all means. And the final thing is kind of a word for you that aren't Swedish speaking here. I have used the word medföljning because in Swedish we often talk about uppföljning, kind of monitoring, and utvärdering, evaluation, and both of which I think are rather retrospective and controlling. I want to stress the idea of medföljning as which could be like here being more of the word of accompanying, a way of sensing and learning together in real time as things unfold. So I think medföljning is a better word for kind of what I think leaders and we need to use when in the search for the solutions that comes with the complex situation. Um, And also in the picture in the circle, I named this dissertation or title "Action and Reflection," and I got a question from the opponent that shouldn't it be reflection and action, but I think sometimes it's really you need to do something before you can reflect on it. But he kind of said that yeah, but you need to have reflection and then action because you need to reflect on things, and I think it's an ever-going circle. This I think that it makes sense for me. But from this perspective, I'm in this context. You know my name, Jonas Botröm, but I have worked a lot of years within healthcare and exploring how the healthcare could or should prepare to meet and handle a constantly moving development. And with things happens that is happening right now with AI and everything, I think it feels like the world is on speed, and everyone talks more and more about complex things, and I have been interested in how can we act within this. And the most common word I think through my PhD and in my daily work is perspectives. So my working experience here. I think of that as perspectives that I bring into my everyday research. Um, but I think the most important things is the experience that I have in my backpack, you know, being a father, being a relative, and sometimes also, of course, as a patient of the or user of our welfare system. I think that is really important to acknowledge when you're working as a designer or developer that you have your own experiences to work with here. And my interest in this is, of course, as you can see in the picture, maybe it's a part of my heritage, you know. When this picture is taken here, I think I'm probably 12, 13, 14 years old, and this is my mother in the picture. She was kind of a, you know, part-time ambulance paramedic. And I think this is quite cool because I think I was really proud of her, you know, but in that time, it was, you know, she got to drive the car really fast when she was going to work, and when the call came from SOS, as they wanted her to come and get out to help patients. She really drove from our home really fast, and I think that was quite cool. And my friends always said, "Your mom drives so fast. She's so good at driving car." And I think, yeah, she is. And then I acknowledge, you know, the other things, what she came to do, meeting patients. And then I come into this area and also educated myself as a nurse. So that's why I'm here, I think. But I want you, Kalle, to kind of, I wanted to start this Friday afternoon to look at the short film. It's 4.5 minutes, I think, giving you my perspective also on where and how healthcare quality really starts. I will show you the original movie right now. It's quite old, but it's in English and it's a Swedish version available. So we will post you the link to that even after. And I would like you also, if you do now when you watch this movie, please write in the chat what comes to your mind when you look at it. So I will be quiet, and Kalle, you can start the movie.
Yeah, this might be the trickiest part of this presentation, I guess, because I will try to share the sound as well. Fingers crossed, this might be working.
Tack Kalle. Ska vi se då, ska vi gå tillbaka. Does you see the picture, Kalle?
Yep, perfect.
I think this is a really important thing. It has definitely been for me, and I see that you wrote some questions around that we really we can't see what really is within people's lives. However, talking about quality, and I will come back to the word of quality here in a minute. It's something that really strikes me the most when I've been working with design and service design, that we have the capability and capacity to kind of, with that kind of methods and other things, of course, get to know what the real needs are from patients. And if we don't understand that we are delivering healthcare, or welfare to people that have different backgrounds and experiences in lives, we're missing the point here with quality. And we could talk about quality how much we would like, but if we don't understand that we need to kind of understand people's lives as much as we can, of course, we're missing the point. I think we'll come back to this movie a little bit later. I also posted one of the links to Region Kalmar that has made a Swedish version of this movie. My journey was kind of it resulted mainly from four different studies, and each of them was connected to my research questions in its own way, and later contributing to publications at conferences and in journals. Methodologically, this process came to resemble what, among others, Marcus Young describes as the hermeneutic spiral. You know, learning that emerge through cycles of interpretation all the time. And this is a period of more than 9 years, almost 9 years. And the knowledge that grows for me and the one I work with grows by moving back and forth in this way, revisiting earlier insights in the light of new understanding. So for my own learning, for better and sometimes for worse, it also meant continuously seeking out different ways of approaching each study. I could have started with one study. I had that vision for myself in the beginning, and then tried to extract as much knowledge I could from that. But it turned out that it became four different studies with different methods. So it's a kind of experimenting with methods and tools. And sometimes that was challenging, but it also expanded my capacity to see the questions from new perspectives. In this sense, the research was not a straight line, of course, but rather this spiraling exploration. And the publications you see here was the one for main contributions to these theses, along with some conference papers, of course. And the last one is, I will tell you a little bit more about very soon. But as I approached this, I started with maybe a lot of things come from that movie. When I worked as an anesthetic nurse, I saw a lot of things that I didn't was really satisfied with. We didn't help each other over the borders, over the clinics in a way that we could have done or could do even today. I think this came to my sense that the power from understanding the power of user involvement as quality for me starts there, of course. Understanding people's life and their often unspoken needs. This figure comes from my licentiate thesis. And already at that stage, this was 3.5 years. After 3.5 years, 4 years, I was working with the idea of perspectives. And the model illustrates that quality in healthcare cannot be understood from one knowledge base alone. Instead, it requires the integration of last, for me, in this part, at least three perspectives: the professional knowledge, and this is an expanding of Paul Batalden's work on continuous improvements, and the professions, how they work, the scientific knowledge, the personal skills and values within the professional in healthcare, and the improvement knowledge. Also highlighting the system thinking, variation psychology, and theory of knowledge. And then I thought it was kind of one perspective that was missing. Some of this is in the improvement knowledge, I know that, but I think from the this design field, there are those things about empathy, creating empathy for the users, co-creation, experimenting that is kind of set the light on things for me. And when I saw what I saw was an ambition to try to kind of connect those perspectives in healthcare, and we still fight with that. I know the Experio Lab headed out in the beginning of around 2012, 2013 about, design meeting healthcare. And I think there are a lot of tensions within that. I think there are designers in this room working with the design perspective, thinking that it's a lot of tensions when we work with design and trying to involve users and create participation in healthcare to improve that. But after 4 years, I think I ended up this period. I came over this picture from Virpi Ojonen, a Finnish illustrator, and uh, when I started. I showed you earlier that after my in the career 2011, I think I started this journey, this knowledge journey in quality management, and I was working a lot with lean and continuous improvement. And this was in several cases really easy to both explain, and often when we talk about reducing waste and be more effective with our services, people agree, definitely, politicians and managers, if you can reduce waste and create more value for the patients that come through a journey from A to B, which a lot of things in healthcare is. You broke your hip and you go on that specific journey that ends up that you come home and you can have kind of a new life with a new hip, and that is definitely a nice thing to work with. However, when with what we have here is, and from my experience, the first 4 years with my PhD studies was not nothing really new things, but within our own department and ward or silo, we can manage to improve things from A to B. But for a lot of things in our welfare systems, the world outside fast becomes very messy. I will not go into the background from why I think this is important how we need to kind of handle change in different ways by expanding your knowledge on what happens in the world today, the demographic challenges, etc. Because I think every article today in talking about social welfare, healthcare, always start to due to the demographics and an elderly that we becomes older, multi illnesses. We have lack of resources, lack of money. It's a lot of problems today that we need to kind of handle. But this illustration also gave me energy to find one way or some way to handle the understanding of what happens if we pull in on one of those threads and understand, okay, how can we learn from that? If we see that we have a movement in one direction, what is happening? And I didn't think that it was possible to do that really before. So what I did then in the last study, I will come back to, because the concept of quality for me, there are a lot of definitions, and I have always stuck to this one, because if we look at the movie, we see that people that have different experiences from healthcare and welfare and the problems with that we can't really see. We couldn't help them. And I think I developed kind of an extended narrative about the concept of quality in my work, its advantages and its limitations. And given the user-driven focus, it was important for me, at least, to find a definition of quality that could be understood in a more dynamic way, not only as a relationship, between let's say, the criteria and the fulfillment of criteria, as it is often when we talk about, the purchaser provider model, that we think we need to deliver something, and if the criteria is met, then we have quality. I think quality is more difficult than that, but in some sense, if people are satisfied or more than satisfied what we are doing, we could start to talk about that value is created. Um, so the dissertation also builds on the insights, of course, that the quality movement itself has gone through several paradigm shifts in response to a rapidly changing world. And this was a few years ago, then the concept of emergence appeared more clearly in this field. It provided a useful umbrella for me and for many of my reflections, experiences, and research results, making sense of how quality arises in practice. And for the final thing, when we combine those two to quality emergence, there are already definitions to be found in the literature, and it's about this dynamic process where quality arises. And I started to work with that and tried to understand that. But as an industrial PhD student, there has also been a academic everyday life, the you are not into the research all the time, but that has often also kind of shaped my research journey. I have been, as Kalle mentioned before, I've been hanging around this research group, the Experio research group, where we have a lot of different perspectives and point of views on what we could do to help and to support healthcare development. And I think that has also brought me back to the word of perspectives. It meant a lot. My field of research has become more and more oriented towards larger transformation change as well, or big change, if you like. The Swedish healthcare system change often more into a more person-centered and integrated care, which is known as nära vård, if you've heard about that. And the same intention, the new social act, both are focusing on a lot of proactivity, accessibility, and the person-centered view. So I think that is really important for me, because talking about quality emergence, I think that is positioned within the field of complexity. But I need to kind of stop a little bit on this illustration that you now will see. It's kind of in a way messy, but things is messy when we talk about this concept of quality emergence. I had some help here with my closest design friend, Cindy Trilsbeck, who is positioned in Västernorrland, now working at Sundsvalls kommun as a designer, service designer. And I tried to we talked to each other and kind of how can you help me illustrate kind of a combining of my frameworks that I've been working with, mainly in the end. And those frameworks, I still come back to them frequently, and I try to combine them. They align with Snowden and Boone's framework. You will really see that on the simple, the complicated, the complex, and the chaotic phases. But the illustration, and it will come to you here, is have also traces of Glauberman and Mintzberg, the four worlds of the hospital, the care, the cure, the control, and the community, and perspectives from complexity theory and complexity adaptive systems. So in the simple part, healthcare is really known for having a strength in this domain, with routines and everything. Professional groups and individual experts are trained to solve well-defined problems with precision. And there are a lot of coordination between specialists that works effectively when problems are clear and bounded. And in practice, patients are often moved between specialist functions, each solving a part of the puzzle. And we're satisfied with that, because it's kind of the simple problems that we could have. And a lot of things in healthcare also in the complex, the complicated field. And in this field, collaboration between professions become crucial. We have trauma units, intensive care, oncology wards, all require different experts to help each other. Still, this often remains about helping across functions rather than working from a shared perspective or agenda or a holistic perspective, because everyone is the experts. So when we move to the complex scenario, what turns out to be especially challenging are when problems are complex. And you all, I think, know about things that could be complex in a healthcare system, being moving around as a patient and don't knowing how to come in contact with healthcare and who can help me, because I have multiple things that I have to sort out with. And healthcare system that are being highly functionally organized is often the lack of time, competencies, and capabilities needed to address this space. And if we want to tackle the complex, we need collaboration in a deeper sense, not only solution oriented, but exploratory and adaptive. Um, and as I mentioned, the transformation change here in the new social act is things that is really on the large system transformations. We need to kind of expand on that. I won't go into the chaos part because I think within Snowden and Boone's model here, chaos is a part of what happens. Now we have a little bit of music here, Kalle. That was nice. Calming down. But we have had the thing about yeah, the initial part of the pandemic. 9/11 in the United States is one of those things that set the system or the society in a suddenly chaotic situation, or the migration crisis in 2015 here in Europe. That was things that where the society rapidly was moved into chaotic state of mind. And from my perspective, this is also a thing that healthcare has and train a lot for, and are really good at when things get messy and really, really chaotic, because we know how to handle that. But there are much less training, is made for the complex everyday situation. We don't train for that a lot in healthcare or welfare, I think. But also, as I talked about you when I gave you the final results, was also along this with the tensions. Just like in the four worlds of care, cure, community, and control, there are tensions in this system when we work with it. And we should not avoid them. Instead, they can be surfaced, used as positive energy, and bring in multiple perspectives. This comes also from the complex adaptive system theory. And to navigate well here requires the insight that not all problems can be solved with the same model. It's never one standard fits all. So this is kind of the framework that I've been working with, and also seeking patterns from within. So I was kind of a step on when realizing, been working a lot with lean and the A to B things. I understood that things are really complex sometimes. And I also came over the book of Frederick Laloux on reinventing organizations. He talks a lot about self-organizing in that, and teal organization, how we could organize ourselves in a new way to handle healthcare, welfare, and the same is with Hillary Cottam's work in NHS. New ways of kind of coordinating and collaborating over borders to kind of help each other. But as I said, I was on, and in the beginning of when I started my PhD, I had a vision. I thought, how could I kind of get in contact with a lot of strategists, leaders, developers around healthcare systems in Sweden, and have their views on what is happening really in their everyday work, and how can we understand that. But I didn't have the tools for that. I didn't have the method. I didn't really have the time or the understanding or the network to make that possible. It was kind of a overwhelming thing. So I started kind of a bit for bit approach along this. But the quote, the para quote from that is in Frederic Laloux's book, I saw that as it kind of, yeah, this is the way it is, you know. We are all natural sensors, and with the learnings from design that we need to use all our senses kind of to create empathy and to understand users and to understand each other. And we need to kind of be able to touch things, sense things, see things, hear things. But how can we understand that? How can we use that data, that qualitative data? Because in one way, a lot of my colleagues and myself try to say, okay, we know a lot of things, but why won't they listen? Why won't the politicians listen? And I think it's the same today. But I think it's also kind of the how can we, on a vertical and horizontal level, kind of connect with each other? That's maybe the Nobel Prize question. But I came back to that. So I really appreciate in relation to design, but also what is also present in nursing science is the fact that in design we often talk about multisensory experiences, right? And engaging not only the eye, but also, you know, the sound, the touch, the smell, and the movement. And this reminds us that people are whole beings. You know, we are more than just a person. We are not just rational decision makers. So and in healthcare, the same applies. If we want to understand quality as it is lived, we must listen with all our senses and with empathy. So I started to think about, okay, how can we censor the reality? Like I had in the vision from the beginning, can we do that? And then I came across the research from Martin Lakios at Chalmers in Gothenburg, who is an entrepreneur researcher, and he has done a lot of things in the academic world, trying to understand how to kind of create learning. He talks about a lot about work-learn balance, and um, and he also talked about, it was framing around value creating science as a method and design action sampling to activate people's thinking and doing around certain phenomenon or topics within academia. And for me, it became a way to understand what happens in the healthcare system, changed to a more person-centered and integrated care. Um, and from the system thinking perspective, we always kind of talk about we want to bring the actors that is kind of affected from an issue into the same room. But for you that have tried to arrange a series of workshops with physicians, nurses, assistant nurses, managers, politicians, etc., you quickly understand the barriers with that. This has, during my time in healthcare, constantly been more and more difficult. The pandemic rapidly made the digital meeting option easier, but however, it's really still hard to make people kind of connect with each other when we talk about understanding. So what we did, and I did, was designing this study following the change process with the tool developed from Martin's research, LoopMe. And you see that in the upper left corner. It's kind of software applications, can be used on a computer or in the phone, where we have micro actions oriented assignments that people reflect on. They make um, um, kind of on a scale from -1 to 2, they can kind of being more positive or negative into that situation. And then they also respond with some effect or tag that they seems, okay, we have learned more, we are frustrated. So we can get some qualitative and quantitative data. So in this study that we did, we had a number of co-researchers, and that is really important for me as well. When you have people and you have action research as my method and approach. I see the people that are into research in their own area as co-researchers. So we have 29 co-researchers in this that were researching their everyday practice. And then we collectively have analyzing this material with them. And then we brought that reflections up to the management and governance, local and regional, to kind of, okay, if we see these patterns, if we see these barriers, if we see those things here, how can we learn from that? And this is Kolb's learning cycle that we are building this on. So we did that for kind of 4 loops during 1 year to try to understand what is happening in nära vård, this transformation. So this has a couple of aims, really. How can you use this tool to understand? How can this tool be kind of putting sensors out in the systems? That's why some of you heard it was called the shark study, because there was this theme or article about where researchers put sensors on shark, and you can see how they're moving in the oceans, and how climate change has made them use take other directions, eating differently. So I would like to call it that we put sensors in the system that we're trying to understand. And how this practically is being done, I will help you trying to kind of see that. This starts with the data-driven dialogue. When people are reflecting in the software with the assignments that we set up, we have reflections on that, and that becomes a dialogue for me as a learning leader or researcher. I can connect with them, and I can help to kind of deepen the reflections, and we bring out data. And that data we take as formative analysis is being kind of analyzed during our phase. Me and my research assistant, Malin, we worked every week with this and trying to see what is happening. And the software itself gives us a lot of number matrix where assignments, tags, and emotions are kind of connected. And also, maybe the main thing with this is the quality data that we get, what people are writing, and why things are happening. So we kind of use it in an Excel sheet. And when you're working with this kind of big material, 28 people constantly reflecting, you get a lot of data. And I think there could be some kind of technical support for large data set that can help us today. I don't know, but they say there are something that could be helpful. But there are really also something that makes you what is happening to me as I expose myself for what people are writing also. I do that when I have this digital driven dialogue, but it's also helped me a lot when I look into it and see and try to understand it through different tags. And then this will be the insights, that we bring to the management, that we bring to the co-researcher, back to them. Okay, we can see that you are talking about this topic in this way. These insights, what are they telling you? And then we have this loop. Then we go back and do new assignments, new questions to reflect on, and then we have a loop of learning here. So to the findings, okay, just to give you a glimpse of understanding this system. We had insights that kind of brought to us conflicts of interest. As I said earlier, we wanted also to kind of not avoid the problems, but also use them to understand them, to then bring them into some kinds of so we could find out new things to how to tackle them. And one of those questions that we started with, just to give you an idea of how a question could look like, when they have this software in LoopMe, we had an assignment that came to them, was that, can you share a situation or an emotional experience that was particularly positive or negative in relation to your work with nära vård the last 2 weeks? And then people kind of started to describe those situations, and they also had a following up question on that, because when you think about systems, you understand that everyone is an individual that kind of in a micro way could affect or change things in their situation that could affect others. So in relation to what you describe here in this situation, what would you like to do more or less of? So when they started this reflection, we can kind of ask them, okay, now you describe the situation where you were in a context of meeting leaders that didn't reply as you wished them to do, but can you give an example what happened? So, and then they describe that, and then we got more information. And then we took that and aggregated that into describing tensions, what they saw, and then we started building hypotheses that they can act on and reflect on further in group on a collective level. And when you use this, so I think bear in mind and have the thing about quality emergence in your head now, because we can't just ask a question and then think that we have the solution. We need to try to kind of build patterns. We need to try to build things that we can understand on an organizational level or a regional level or a national level. And the more data, the easier we can find the patterns, of course. So this is a way that we kind of connected the quantitative data that kind of was illustrated within the tags that we had set up. You know, this is in Swedish, but it says frustration, hinder, leverages, try something new, missing knowledge, collaboration. So when they kind of had a reflection on the situation they had been through, they can also say, okay, when I experienced this, this was really a situation where we showed collaboration on a higher level. So then we can look into that reflection and say, okay, do we see something more of that? When we see that 20 of the reflections talking about collaboration, what are they really doing? What is happening then? And then we can see patterns that was combining them into some categories or themes. So we worked with the data in that way. So why is this important from my point of view? Yeah. One of my favorite designers and researchers is Justina Wink, and she kind of introduced me to the work of Robert Pirsig and the book of maintenance, motorcycle maintenance. And in that, there are this quote. And I think we have talked a lot about this, even this morning in the study circle that Experio and Kalle and Hanna has. We talked about this. We need kind of a system change. Everyone is talking about that to kind of maybe maintain the welfare system that we have today. And even if we want to do it better, I think it's really important that we need to understand the system. Otherwise, we couldn't change it in a way. And maybe some people talk about we need the disruption of it. We need to kind of tear it down. It needs to become chaos. But I think we also need to acknowledge that we know a lot about the system, but we need to even go a little bit deeper. And a lot of my colleagues and talking to nurses, talking to doctors, there are a lot of sensors and experience and knowledge out in the system that we need to use, that we can use more. But it's also like the quote from Frederick Laloux, we have some distortion in the system that we can't really use it because we don't really have that leadership today or that kind of management and the governance and how we kind of create and handle this system. And I 2 days ago I remember that I had a picture from Sanders and Steppers, but I didn't really know where to find it. But I searched, and there is something that is kind of interesting in this because I see the same things within quality. They try to kind of think about how design has moved from product to kind of being something else, services, and how design was in the beginning for consumers, and taking the way to kind of design with users. And in the future, and I don't think it's in the future, the last one, I think it's not 2044, I think it's now, that we have designed by people. We can see that in many fields, I think, in different ways. And you that are designers, maybe you wouldn't agree, and maybe sometimes we still move back and forth in this. But if we want to kind of in these complex situations, I think the last thing that Sanders and Steppers are showing here is really applicable on how to handle and how to act when we also need to kind of find quality or develop our organizations, to help people that are in these really messy situations. Because I think we have a healthcare system that is really working also, but it's not for the more problematic things. And you saw these publications, and we haven't come back to this. I thought, okay, now Kalle let me in and talk on this topic about quality emergence. And I thought back on a moment where we had a project a couple of years ago, and I got to sit down and write some stuff along with Britt-Marie Anell, who is a journalist, but also has in the next in kind, or with the relative movement around in Sweden. She has been a relative to her sick husband, and we started to kind of elaborate and think about things, that some principle to act on. And you see that this was called, I said, closer transformation to a learning environment for person-centered and integrated care. So we had a project with a couple of designers that did things around Sweden, and then we kind of learned from that. And I thought I would kind of take the opportunity to highlight some of these things, and you can go back and read this. It's in Swedish, but I've tried to kind of here translated it. We said that you need to think close ahead and simple. Part of the nära vård mindset is to think close in terms of accessibility, geography, and relationships. Another strand is to think ahead, being proactive, preventing illness and difficulties by strengthening health and people's own capacity. A third is to keep it simple, sometimes called user-friendly. So how can a service or public function be made truly close for citizens? Easy to read, easy to use, even preventive in its pathways. We need to think about that. We need to change also perspective to be able to see through the eyes of the others. You can see that from the movie I showed you in the beginning. Genuinely understanding how others think and experience life is among one of the hardest things we do. We all carry different maps of reality. I saw that in the chat also. Limited by our own constraints in thought, time, and space. For instance, you may have a short meeting on your unit terms, while the person you meet struggles with chronic conditions across many parts of life. We need to also to coordinate actors into new holes. Far-reaching specialization has created silos, narrow perspective and governance that prioritize unit efficiency over the individual's life. People are sent around and forced to coordinate their own care and services. The same lack of coordination frustrates employees trapped by rigid processes and detailed instructions. I think we have a lock in here in the system. We want to help, but we also, as talking for myself as nurses, sometimes we want to stop patients from coming to the hospitals because we have too much to do, and we miss a lot of things that get really emotional for me, even when I talk about it. That we kind of, and sometimes you don't want to help because you're in the way to a very stressful environment for yourself, and you usually read about this in the papers almost every day today. We need to include users and other voices. So Involve, engage, share influence, enable co-creation, strengthen capacity. It's many words for a similar idea. And here we talked about let inclusion embrace them all in the transition to more citizen-based systems of welfare. It's not just healthcare, it's welfare. Build and strengthen relationships. A relationship lasts over time, involves repeated contact, and requires personal responsibility beyond a single meeting. It is more than a good service, kindness, and attentiveness, more than what you can be governed, measured, and documented in a system. It is created by people sharing experience and has value in itself. And one thing that is often the topic when we talk about Experio Lab, develop by doing and testing. It rarely does work well when a few people isolate themselves to develop something without those affected being involved in thinking and trying. We learn by doing and reflecting on what we have done, as John Dewey reminded us. And the last thing, we need to create learning attitudes and environments. And we often talk about creating learning forums, but I think the learning attitudes is really important. That requires adapting to both situations and individuals. Citizens and employees must co-create, and all actors must learn, collaborate, and evolve together. It's a movement, not a fixed solution. And I think back to the loop me thing. We need to try to have an environment in healthcare, welfare, and public organizations that could establish learning while we are working. So we work-learn balance, as Martin also says. Definitely today when lacking resources. So moving into the last things from me, I think this is a journey from my research, looking a little bit back, is still a vision for a new system, how to handle healthcare when it's becoming more and more complex. And this is nothing new to you, working with these issues, as I think you all do. But we need to kind of challenge these systems. And we need to do it by bringing in a lot of other perspectives. And that is difficult for maybe coming in from outside, trying to do that, but also inside, recognizing that you don't are the expert on everything. We need to take help from many different views. And in my dissertation, I kind of try to make a definition of what designing for quality emergence then is. How we constantly and intentionally design a dynamic process where organizations incorporate, adapt, and facilitate different perspectives in a given moment, which reveal new patterns guiding organizations to understand how their services meet or exceed people's expectations. And one thing that I haven't talked about, but you can read about it in many books and a little bit in my dissertation, is this about facilitation. And I don't know, Kalle, if you could put that report in the chat. But after finishing this and after spending some times with also Samhällsnytta with Karlstad Universitet lately, I had the opportunity kind of fast being given the opportunity to read Martin Fransson's report on ownerless service systems. And I think if you think I'm on the right track with this presentation, I think you should read Martin's report on ownerless systems, because I think I'm stuck sometimes and feel that I'm walking around in an ownerless systems where we try to figure out how to solve things, understand things that are complex, but that no one really kind of seems to own. How do we do that? We need to kind of put one or seven of the principles that I have here, and Britt-Marie was a part of to sign up and write up. I think these are kind of puzzles to engage here. Another thing that is really important, and which I think in a digital way, we have accomplished some digital listening through the study that I've been doing. I think if we can start listen to our systems, trying to understand what the sensors in the systems tells us, we can meet the future in a better way. We can create a better welfare. And for us then, as individuals in these systems, leaders in this system, my question was a few days ago to a municipality working with the new social act, social services. And I asked them this question: how do you activate, stimulate, and make use of the knowledge that users possess? And that is, users for me is the co-workers of the organization, the patients, the relatives, the leaders, the politicians. But we need to kind of know how we do that, because then we can become medföljande, I think. That is my ambition. That is my vision. So I think I will try to work further with that. And I don't think I have any more pictures, Kalle. I happily open up for discussion, thinking around the movie, what I said. If you have examples from your daily practice.
Thank you very much, Jonas. This was a tremendous presentation. And I think I will try to remove the spotlight from you and let everybody into this meeting to have questions, reflections, or anything they want to share with the group, or something in particular they want to ask or reflect with Jonas. So please raise your hand if you have something in mind. I see a lot of applause and thumbs up. So it was a great presentation, definitely one of the
Thank
most.
you. Thank you.
So please, do we have anyone who wants to have some kind of reflection? Maybe we have something in the chat here. It was Gerolf that was giving us some tips about some kind of study, as I understand it. So there are, and I also put this Martin Fransson in Swedish, although his report in the chat as well. So yeah, we have Anna, please.
Thank you. I'll just turn on my camera.
Yes.
Sorry, and I'll maybe
Little bit blurry.
I'm
Friday
blurred.
afternoon.
There it goes. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. It was a very, very touching presentation, I think, and also because of your experience, I think you made a lot of connections where it really, at least I perceived it as such, that you really feel the system in a way. What struck me a little bit, and this is more like maybe a conversation starter rather than a question. In a couple of your slides and some of the quotes, there was a lot about listening. So it comes to those who listen and things like that. And I'm personally working as a postdoc here at Linköping University, and I'm interested in sound as a design material, as material for representation, actually. So I keep thinking about the experience of time in service settings, especially in healthcare settings. For example, in the movie that you showed at the beginning, a person waiting for 3 hours who is, experiences time in a super slow way versus a person who is at the end of the 12-hour shift that just wants to get out of it. So I feel like there are this musical elements to these interactions in big systems that can maybe be a method how we can approach the understanding. And within the kind of the project that I'm having, I'm exploring this technique of deep listening, which is basically defined as kind of a difference between this involuntary ways of hearing versus the conscious listening to understanding. So I'm just wondering, have you thought about it? And would there be maybe?
But I love the connection you do to that, because I think we as the the healthcare system is getting everything getting faster and faster and faster. We can't stand we can't really handle that, and I think we need to bring back things that touches people's senses in other ways. But this is really a difficult question, because a lot of things that we will do kind of when we develop is kind of to be more effective in the system. And then what we take away then is often those things that you are talking about, kind of how can we establish other things, or representations of other things in this system, kind of people to let people react on or be more creative. Because when we talk about me, I think Karin is in this room as well, Karin Peterson. We talked this spring with a lot of nurses and people working in the system, and they say they don't have the time for reflection, but they also are people that are really creative. So they are really, when we could kind of bring in other perspectives, like in your case, music or other elements, I think that's really interesting, because it's kind of um, it opens up for new things to see, and maybe it's not the solution, but it's something that emerge. You're in the process of emerging. I think that is a good way. So I will be interested to follow what you're doing, Anna, because I think that is interesting when we do that.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Then we have PC. Please, PC.
I can't get, you hear me? I can't get,
Yeah.
Here's the picture too.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for an interesting presentation. I'm a researcher, but in total different field. So maybe my questions are not relevant, but I still try.
Please.
As I understand, you define quality as the meeting or exceeding the expectations of the user.
Yeah.
But at least in Sweden, we have an increasing part of the, board that is unnecessary use.
Yeah.
And you can never, you have a lot of people that will be very satisfied talking with a doctor in the middle of the night if you have a mosquito bite that is itching. And we have also companies that really promote this because they get a lot of money on it. So I think this is an interesting part for those people who really need healthcare.
Yeah.
But an increasing part of unnecessary healthcare is taking resources from these people that may really need it. So have you reflected on that other part? That's the work with somebody else.
No, definitely, and I think it's not it's another one way definition or solution of everything. And I think one thing that comes to my mind often when I talk to people around this is when what we should give. It would be easy to talk in this in Swedish, but I will try to stay in English. We should give people what they want, because then they are satisfied. So then they are quality. If we give people what they want, what they say they want. But I think it's not the case of giving people what they say they want. In this case, easy healthcare, if I could use a sloppy version of that. But we need to know, or we need to find out why they say they want things. And that is for us to kind of understand. We shouldn't because otherwise what we have seen in healthcare today, people, I have a list. I want to see the doctor today, so I go to the emergency department. That is the case, what you are describing here also, I think, that we are more and more, we want things easier and easier and easier. We want more and more and more to maybe consume them. So, but I think for me, it's about why I've got stuck with that definition, because there are other definitions, I think it's contextual. This is because when I talk about quality emergence, I know we need to understand people better, but we really don't need to do exactly what they say, because often we say something, but we really don't want that, but we can't kind of speak out what we really want, because the hidden needs, the needs that we can't say, because we really didn't know what they are just now. But you are onto something that is really, really important today. And maybe we have too much. Maybe we need to take away things also. But it's kind of with the climate thing, you know. We want everything, but we kind of, are we willing to give away some things of that? That is a really interesting question, and we could talk about this forever, I think, because that is really interesting what you're saying. So I'm happy you bring it up, because you need to understand, or we need to understand, that when we make definitions is contextual, and that is why I wanted to have that for myself and for my dissertation. But I agree with you fully.
Thank you very much for that kind of reflection and question, BC. And thank you, Jonas, for that kind of reflection back. We have a few minutes left if there are someone who have something in mind. So please raise your hand. Otherwise, I think we maybe, yeah, we have one more, maybe. PC, you wanted to?
Yeah, if I can have another question.
Yes,
Just
sure.
reflection here on the data-driven dialogue, the software that you discussed about. How do you ensure representativeness there? I guess somebody having their husband dying won't want to answer this data, what do you say, these questions, or maybe a 90-year-old multi-disease person doesn't.
I should say,
how do you reflect and ensure representativeness?
In this case, it's about we did a study with developers, you know, not patients, not relatives. So there was not a data-driven dialogue with patients. It was with strategists, developers, coordinators that was in the system. But what you are saying is another question that we have arose. I think you could use this way of acting to come in contact with people that have stories. So you could be doing this with patients or with relatives, but you need to really be certain of what you are doing, of course. But I think the question about the representativeness is another question of that we could talk along about, because sometimes you can't always. I'm not into science that it is really that. I think representativeness is a difficult question, because should we have hundreds of people? Is the data more okay then, or is it 150, or is when I'm not into that, but maybe you didn't mean that.
No, I mean it does. The size is just the confidence intervals. The representatives is that if you lose, let's say, everybody over 90 years, they don't answer.
Course.
So that's
of
so
course.
it's not really the sample size.
No.
Yeah.
But it's still this wasn't the case for that kind in this study. This was more of a tryout to see if we could understand the system if we use this kind of method in this sense. So yeah, but good question, and it's important.